Hello, my name is Larry Massey, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you today about 1113 Ministries, tell you a little bit about what we do. This is a ministry that my wife Debbie and I started back in April 2020 as a means of trying to help people through the pandemic at that time. There were a lot of food insecure people and shelter insecure people, and it still prevails today. But we didn't know what the extent was going to be at the time, and I don't know that we still do yet. In any event, our thought was to help those less fortunate than us, some people that were having a difficult time because of the pandemic. So we delivered the week after Easter 85 hot meals to the front doors of people identified to us as people in need. We've been fortunate enough to be able to keep that up now. Every 2 weeks, we deliver meals, non contact deliveries, hot meals to people in the surrounding area, people who've come and been put on our list by local law enforcement, etc. A number of support agencies who refer these names to us. But there are people who perhaps don't have family around them. They're unable to cook. They're isolated, living by themselves. A lot of them are elderly. A lot of them haven't been out of their living space, except to go to the doctors, perhaps, since February and March of last year. So it's been almost 10 months of self quarantine or forced quarantine because of their underlying physical issues, health issues that prevent them from being out in the public. And this is a means of checking on their welfare, making sure they're okay, but also a means of uh, fitting their physical needs or their food insecurities or shelter insecurities, but also just letting them know that they're cared for, that they're loved, that there are people looking out for them and people who will actively seek them out to check on their welfare to make sure they're okay. I'm able to visit a number of these people following the meals. We always have follow up contacts just to make sure they're still okay. So it's not just supplying the meal; it's a method of ongoing welfare checks to make sure they're still okay. Let them know that again they're being helped, that people care about them. We also, as part of By God's Grace Mobile Meals, drive the van around town. You may have seen it, but we drive it around town and we give out blessing bags. These are knapsack type bags that contain snack items, hats, gloves, a blanket usually, but toiletries, and enough food to get them through the next day and a half, perhaps 2 days. And these are handed out to our homeless friends, our couch surfing friends that we see on East O and all the places around town, just to help them get through a cold period or just get through the day. I also carry hot coffee and a hot chocolate on that van, and we hand that out and visit and talk. And we're also able to let them know that they have value, they're appreciated, and that somebody is also looking out for them. The people with shelter insecurities, we sometimes put up in motels on a cold night, but we also deliver food boxes to those families and individuals in need who are unable to work or who've had hours cut back because of the pandemic. And this is just something that we're able to do that, along with partners like yourself, who've graciously provided the funds to help us supply over 700 meals to those around us in need. And we are very grateful for that support, for that help. You've impacted people in ways that I don't know that you are aware of. This helps people on both sides of this issue, people who are given the care and people who are extending the care. We have 30 to 40 volunteers who routinely show up to help us plate and these meals and deliver them. Uh, but we also have an ancillary group who do other things for us. For example, the blessing bags that I described earlier, there's an elderly couple and two elderly couples who actually put those together for us. I take them the supplies and they put them in the bags and they call me when they're finished and I go pick them up, and it allows them to actively participate in ministry and as a means of helping others themselves, and to people who have the mental desire and perhaps can't physically do a lot anymore because of health and whatever. It allows them a method of extending care and grace and kindness to those people who they will never see. Um, and it helps people like Cindy, a lady who has Alzheimer's, who's convinced that she and I went to high school together. That's an impossibility. It didn't happen, but she's convinced she knows me. She recognizes my face now, and we're able to talk and visit. And I've become kind of her clearinghouse for the caregivers around her. She can't handle large groups of people. She's easily confused, can't read or understand or comprehend written directions anymore. So people kind of funnel information through me to her. And I sit down with her and explain the week's events, the day's events, the care that's coming in ways that she'll understand. But again, it's to let her know that she is loved and cared for and that she has value and is appreciated. She lives by herself. Family is here, but don't often come to visit. And in her current state of mind, she sometimes feels um, isolated, alone, forgotten. And we're allowed to alleviate some of that. There is another an example of how this ministry affects those around us. One of the first times I delivered a meal to a lady in her 90s, she opened the door for me, and I'm masked, I'm gloved, I have hand sanitizer, and she pokes her head around the door and asks, "Are you afraid?" And I said, "No." She says, "Neither am I. Can I have a hug?" And so I approached her and hugged her, and that has now become protocol on a meal delivery to her. She needs the hug. She's isolated. She lives alone. She's by herself. Family lives out of state. She's in her 90s. She has a caregiver that stops by once a week, but she has no other contact with anybody, no one else to visit and talk to. So we kind of fill that niche as well. Again, the people who come to help are blessed by their ability to help, by knowing who they're feeding and how they're impacting the community around them. Yesterday, we delivered our 5,400th meal. And again, we hope to deliver over 10,000 meals in 2021. And we currently deliver in Scottsbluff, Gearing, and Morrill, but we hope to include Mitchell in the near future. Again, just reaching out to those people who are emotionally affected, physically affected, food affected, and shelter affected by this pandemic. Uh, but it's through gracious benefactors like yourself who've been able to help us directly. You've been responsible for helping us deliver over 700 of those meals. Yeah, the funds that you've provided have paid for that, and you've paid for the welfare that brings, for the sense of belonging that brings, and for the sense of enjoyment, the pleasure we derive from serving in this way. We're all part of the same team, and we thank you graciously for that support. And we just hope to continue as your partner, but more importantly, uh, just a small glimpse of all that the Oregon Trail Community Foundation and the friends of the Oregon Trail Community Foundation uh, do for the community around us, how you serve them, and the impact it has on the people around us. And we thank you greatly for allowing us to share. Thank you so much for your time.